My husband of 15 years asked for divorce to find himself. When I discovered he'd been questioning our son's paternity to avoid child support, I waited until he was with his mistress at our special restaurant and delivered the DNA results. I never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get it off my chest. 15 years of marriage down the drain, and somehow I'm the one who ended up with the last laugh, though it doesn't feel much like victory. 3 months ago, my husband came home late from work, as had become his habit. He sat me down at our kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared thousands of meals, planned our future, and celebrated our anniversaries, and told me he wanted a divorce. Just like that. No discussion, no attempt at counseling, nothing. He claimed we'd grown apart and he deserved to be happy. I wasn't completely blindsided. The late nights, the sudden business trips, the new cologne, the way he guarded his phone. I'm not stupid. But after 15 years, I thought we at least deserved a conversation about it. Is there someone else? I asked. He denied it, of course. Looked me straight in the eyes and said no. Then had the audacity to say he just needed space to find himself. At 42, apparently he hadn't had enough time to do that in the previous 4 decades. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. 15 years of memories flashed through my mind. Our wedding day, buying our first home, the 3 miscarriages we'd endured together, and finally the birth of our son 12 years ago. All of it seemed to dissolve in that moment. If that's what you want, I said finally, I won't fight you on it. He seemed surprised by my calm. Maybe he expected a scene, tears, begging. But I was done performing for him. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and logistics. He moved into an apartment downtown while I stayed in our house with our son. I hired a lawyer, but told her I wanted this over quickly. No dragging things out. My husband seemed relieved, almost giddy at how maturely we were handling things. Then came the day I saw them together. I was picking up groceries when I spotted them across the store. My husband and a woman I recognized from his office. She couldn't have been more than 28. They weren't being particularly discreet, laughing and touching as they shopped. My son was with me, and I quickly steered our cart down another aisle before he could see his father. That night, after putting our son to bed, I made a call to a private investigator. If my husband was going to lie to my face and potentially try to screw me over in the divorce, I needed leverage. The PI didn't take long to confirm what I already knew. The affair had been going on for at least 8 months. But he found something else, something I hadn't expected. Something that made my blood run cold. You see, 12 years ago, when our son was born, my husband had been ecstatic. He'd always wanted children, and after our miscarriages, our boy seemed like a miracle. He doted on him, constantly commenting on how much our son looked like him, how he had the family nose or the family chin. But the PI had uncovered text messages. Recent ones. My husband joking to his mistress about how he wasn't even sure the kid was his, and how he might be off the hook for child support if he could prove it. It was like being stabbed. Our son was the spitting image of my husband. Everyone said so. And more importantly, there had never been anyone else. Not for me. That's when I decided to get the DNA test. Not because I had any doubts, but because I wanted to shove the results in his face. I wanted him to know that while he had broken every vow, I had kept mine. The divorce proceedings continued. He was pushing for joint custody but trying to minimize child support and alimony. Classic. Meanwhile, I quietly collected the DNA samples and sent them off. Last week, I got the results. And that's when everything changed. I found out through mutual friends that he was taking his mistress to Bellini's, the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date, where he'd proposed, where we'd celebrated every anniversary for 15 years. The sheer audacity of it made something snap inside me. I got dressed up. Not over the top, just nice enough to show I wasn't falling apart. I arranged for our son to stay with my sister, and I drove downtown. They were seated at a corner table, champagne already flowing. I walked straight over, my heart pounding but my face calm. They both looked up, startled. The color drained from my husband's face. Sorry to interrupt your evening, I said pleasantly, as if bumping into casual acquaintances. I just wanted to drop this off. I slid an envelope across the table. What is this? He asked, his voice tight. The DNA results you were so curious about, I replied. And the final divorce papers. I've signed everything. You're free. His mistress shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Enjoy your freedom, I said, then leaned in closer so only he could hear. And enjoy explaining to everyone why you're paying triple the child support we initially discussed. Turns out the courts don't look kindly on men who abandon their biological children for younger women. I walked out with my head high, ignoring his calls behind me. In the envelope were indeed the DNA results, confirming 99.9% that he was our son's father, along with screenshots of those damning text messages where he'd suggested otherwise. It's been a week since that night. He's been blowing up my phone, alternating between rage and pleading. His mistress apparently wasn't thrilled to discover he'd been questioning his paternity just to save money. His family is horrified. And our son, thankfully, remains unaware of the worst of it, though he knows his father has made some bad choices. The divorce will be finalized next month. I'm getting the house, primary custody, and yes, that triple child support. Not because I'm vindictive, but because our son deserves security after his father tried to deny him. 15 years of marriage ended not with a bang, but with a quiet envelope slid across a table at Bellini's. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a big scene. It's simply showing someone exactly who they are. Update 1. It's been 3 months since that night at Bellini's, and I wanted to update you all since so many of you have sent supportive messages. The divorce was finalized last month. Despite his attempts to backpedal and delay things, the judge was unsympathetic, especially after seeing those text messages. My ex-husband's lawyer actually advised him to accept my terms rather than risk the judge making an even less favorable ruling. The most surprising development came 2 weeks ago. The mistress reached out to me through social media. She wanted to meet for coffee, which I initially refused. But curiosity got the better of me, and I eventually agreed to a quick meeting at a public cafe. She showed up looking nothing like the confident woman from the restaurant. She seemed tired, nervous. Turns out, my envelope drop wasn't the only revelation that night. After I left, they had a massive fight where she discovered he'd been lying to her about being separated for years before actually asking for the divorce. She also found out he'd been seeing someone else on the side. Yes, he was cheating on his mistress too. I thought you should know he's been telling people you cheated first, she said, sliding her phone across the table to show me screenshots of messages he'd sent to mutual friends. It's not right. I was stupid to believe him about you, and I'm sorry. I thanked her for the information, but told her I didn't need it. Our friends who matter know the truth, and I've stopped caring what he says about me. My son is adjusting better than I expected. His therapist says kids are resilient when they have at least one stable parent, and I'm doing my best to be that for him. He sees his father every other weekend, though I hear those visits often involve my ex's parents taking over while he handles some work. As for me, I've started taking classes to update my nursing credentials. I worked part-time during our marriage, but now need to prepare for full-time work once the alimony period ends. It feels good to focus on building something for myself. The house feels emptier without him, but also cleaner somehow. Like the air is fresher. I've redecorated our bedroom and painted over the kitchen walls that used to be his favorite color. Small changes that help me reclaim the space. I won't pretend it's all been easy. There are nights I still wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. 15 years leaves marks on your soul that don't disappear overnight. But for the first time in years, I'm excited about the future instead of just enduring the present. Update 2. 6 months post-divorce, and life has taken some unexpected turns. My ex-husband got fired from his job last month. Apparently, his affair with the mistress violated company policy about relationships between managers and direct reports. The irony is that she kept her job. She'd transferred to another department right after our confrontation at Bellini's. He called me in a panic about child support, claiming he couldn't make the payments while unemployed. I reminded him about the considerable severance package I knew he'd received, and suggested he speak to the court if he needed to adjust the payments. I wasn't going to be his financial advisor anymore. What I didn't expect was for him to show up at my doorstep at 11 p.m. last Tuesday, clearly drunk, begging to talk. Our son was thankfully at a sleepover. I refused to let him in and threatened to call the police. He sat on the porch for nearly an hour, alternating between apologies and accusations before finally leaving when I actually dialed 911. The next day, I filed for a temporary restraining order. Not because I felt physically threatened, but because I needed to establish boundaries. The judge granted it, limiting him to communication about our son through a parenting app. On a brighter note, I've reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. Looking back, I can see how my ex had subtly isolated me from people he considered your friends, not our friends. We've started a monthly dinner club, and last week was my turn to host. It felt strange at first, filling the house with laughter and conversation that had nothing to do with my former life. But by the end of the night, it felt right. My son asked me yesterday if I was going to start dating again. I was caught off guard. It hadn't even crossed my mind. When I asked what made him think about that, he said, "Dad has a new girlfriend already. Don't you want one too? I mean, not a girlfriend, but you know." I explained that I was happy focusing on myself and him right now, but that someday I might meet someone. He seemed satisfied with that answer, though he added, "Just make sure they're nice. Dad's new one isn't very nice." Out of the mouths of babes. My lawyer called today to inform me that my ex is petitioning for reduced child support due to his changed financial circumstances. We have a court date next month. I'm not worried. He's already found another job, though at a lower salary. The court will adjust accordingly, but he won't get the dramatic reduction he's hoping for. The DNA test results still sit in my bedside drawer. Sometimes I take them out and look at them, Not out of doubt, but as a reminder of how close I came to letting him gaslight me about the most important person in my life. It's a strange talisman, but it helps me trust my instincts again. 15 years of marriage, and I never truly knew the man I was living with. 6 months of freedom, and I'm finally getting to know myself. Update 3. 1 year post-divorce. It feels like both an eternity and the blink of an eye. The biggest news is that I've sold the house. After much thought and discussion with my son, we decided the space held too many memories, both good and bad. We've moved to a smaller but cozier townhouse closer to my sister and my new job. My son has his own room to decorate however he wants, and I have a small garden patio where I've started growing herbs and tomatoes. My ex fought the sale of the house, claiming he should get half the proceeds despite the divorce agreement clearly awarding me the property. His lawyer eventually talked him down after pointing out that challenging the agreement could open up review of all assets, including his 401k that he'd managed to protect. The sale went through, and I've invested most of my share for my son's college fund and my eventual retirement. Speaking of my ex, his new girlfriend, that my son mentioned lasted about 3 months. According to my son, there's been another one since then, but she doesn't come around when he visits anymore. The original mistress, surprisingly, has become something of an ally. We're not friends, exactly, but she occasionally passes along information when my ex is planning something that might affect our son. I appreciate the heads up, though I keep my guard up. The reduced child support hearing went as expected. The judge adjusted the amount based on his new salary, which was fair. What wasn't fair was his attempt to reduce visitation, claiming his new work schedule made the every other weekend arrangement burdensome. The judge saw through this and maintained the schedule, adding that if he found it too difficult to spend time with his son, perhaps he should reconsider his priorities. My nursing credentials are updated, and I've been working at a pediatric clinic for 4 months now. The hours work well with my son's school schedule, and the work itself is rewarding in a way I'd forgotten. There's something healing about helping others heal. As for dating, I've dipped my toe in those waters very cautiously. A colleague set me up with her brother-in-law, and we've been on 3 pleasant, if somewhat awkward dates. He's kind and understands my hesitation. We're taking things glacially slow, which he respects. I'm not sure if it will develop into anything serious, but it's nice to remember that I'm not just an ex-wife and mother. I'm still a woman with her own desires and needs. My son turned 13 last month. We had a small party at an arcade with his friends, and to my surprise, my ex showed up on time with a thoughtful gift and behaved civilly throughout. Afterward, my son said it was the best birthday he could remember, because everyone was just normal. It broke my heart a little that normal had become his benchmark for a good day, but I was grateful he had that experience. The DNA test results have been moved from my bedside drawer to a filing cabinet. I don't need them close anymore. The doubt and insecurity that plagued me in those early days after the separation have faded. I know who I am now, stronger than I ever thought possible. 1 year ago, I walked into Bellini's restaurant with an envelope that I thought would be my final act in a 15-year drama. Instead, it was just the beginning of a new story, one where I'm both the author and the protagonist. Life after betrayal isn't a straight line to healing. It's messy and complicated and sometimes circles back on itself. But standing here a year later, I can honestly say I wouldn't go back to that kitchen table where he asked for a divorce even if I could. Some endings, painful as they are, make necessary beginnings possible.